Hello and welcome to a very special bonus edition of the Bigger Boat podcast. You thought you could get rid of us, but here we are in your ears once again. I'm here with Joey, as always.
Yes, not talking about one specific movie, so this is an odd format.
I know. It's right, you'll get your head around this.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do, as you may have seen by the title, this is the Spielberg list. This is where we're going to have a quick look through the entire of Steven Spielberg's work, everything that we've talked about beforehand, and try and come out with a definitive top 10 list. It's very similar to what other people have done, but I don't care. They didn't invent...
Nor to our audience.
Not exactly. They didn't invent lists, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So, what we're going to do is not only have we generated our own top 10 lists of our favourite Spielberg films, we've also got the top 10 lists of every single one of our guests that we've had, except Harry, who we forgot to ask. I'm really sorry, Harry. So, apart from that, everyone who's been...
Let's assume we put War of the Worlds at number one.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We'll give it an automatic 10 bonus points.
Yeah.
But everyone else who's been a guest on the podcast has given us a top 10 list. What we'll do is we will assign them a number. If they're number one, we give them 10 points. And then we'll generate a cumulative top 10 list. And we'll see how that looks and see if we agree with it.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure we won't, because some people have not taken this seriously. Put some weird things in much higher places than I thought.
Non-Spielberg movies.
Not quite.
Gremlins, number one.
Transformers.
Yeah.
Love Transformers.
I should kill you.
The Fast and the Furious. Yeah, George has just ranked all the Fast and the Furious movies. Yeah. So when we came up for a title for this episode, we were trying to think of some sort of very clever pun to come up with the listing counters of the Spielberg. No, and just nothing was working at all. And I was trying to think, what are the other words for list or ranking or something like that? It's like, if only there was a Spielberg film with the word list in it that I could think of. And then it completely drew a blank. But here we go. It's called the Spielberg list. But actually, I've brought you a little gift, Joey.
Have you?
As a
leaving gift.
A little leaving gift.
Oh.
But also, this gift is a little tease for our next season of the Bigger Boat podcast, which will come at some indefinite point.
Cool.
But we thought we would do another filmmaker and go through their entire back catalogue. And this is a little tease of who it might be, Joey. So I bought you a little notebook.
Oh, wow. Thank you very much.
Maybe, should we reveal to the audience what we're going to do? What? Yeah.
Yeah, I think we should.
Yeah. So do you want to describe the notebook that I bought you?
It is a black notebook with a red laser eye dot in the middle.
Do you know which movie that's?
And it is, of course, Mission Impossible. It's got Miss Brian De Palma, right? It is, of course, HAL, isn't it? It's from 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I got your little notebook because you keep on writing on a little bit of paper the entire time, and you always I keep on finding those little bits of paper around my house.
Really?
Yeah, because you never take it with you. You always just.
Now, you had mentioned that you were going to get me a gift, and I haven't got you one, so I'm
That's fine.
sorry. But what I thought it might be was, I thought you'd maybe had like a t-shirt printed which says Hitchcockian Technique on or something.
That would have been much better.
That's what I'm mentally prepared for.
That would have been too much effort. But I've got myself a matching notebook, because obviously I've got my Jurassic Park notebook for this one.
Brilliant.
So I've got myself... Well, actually, I've given myself the better one of the two.
Oh, cool, yeah.
I bought myself a notebook with a shining carpet on it.
Yeah.
So obviously, yeah. So prepared for our Stanley Kubrick season, which will come to your ears sometime in 2020.
Yes.
Yes. Seems a long way away.
Yes.
But next year we'll be back.
And most likely they'll be monthly.
Yes, because I will have exams, essays, and a child.
And Kubrick movies are long.
And they are long, exactly. Lots to talk about. Right, so to start off with a list, let's not reveal what was in our top 10, but I think for this, I don't know what you've put actually yet, but for me, there was like 8, actually almost 9 that were always going to be in the top 10. And actually, vying for number 10 and number 9 could have been a few, and I found the first like 8 quite easy.
Really?
And the next 9 or 10 I found a bit difficult. Like, what am I going to
tell you what?
Yeah.
I actually very comfortably reached the midway point.
Yeah.
Of 5, 6.
Yeah.
And it was sort of the other 5, 4, which were quite difficult.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So I actually was confident in my first 6, let's say.
Okay.
And, you know, I still have a little bit of leeway there. There's particularly one, sort of number 9,
Yeah.
that I feel could chop and change. That could change minute to minute almost.
As in get out of the top 10 entirely, or was always going to be in the top 10?
As in, like, yeah, there's flexibility there. Like,
Okay.
no certainty of it being in top 10 at all.
All right, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what were the movies that didn't make the cut? So, because I had like an A list of movies that were always going to be in the top 10, and I had a B list of 6 or 7 movies that I thought, do I like this enough? Is that going to make the top 10?
Yeah.
Did you have any of those, or shall I let you know what some of my movies were?
What, you want to know what were the iffy ones?
What didn't quite make the cut. What didn't quite make the cut for you?
Well, this is the most controversial thing on my list. Shall I reveal it this early?
Yeah, go on then. Let's get the drama in early.
Sure. Well, it's not that controversial, really.
Well, no, it's a list about top 10 Spielberg movies. No one's going to be hanging on the edge of their seat.
But it was a toss-up in that number 9 position.
Yeah.
Between Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah.
And Ready Player One.
Ready Player One, okay.
Which one did I pick?
You put Ready Player One in your top 10, didn't you? Over Saving Private Ryan.
I did.
Wow. That is interesting.
That's controversial, right?
That is controversial. Yeah.
Because if you look at the Wikipedia page, if we trust everything Wikipedia says, you know, it's universally considered one of the best movies ever made.
Now, is that because you've watched Ready Player One much more recently, and obviously you started dancing to that? Or as soon as we started watching Ready Player One, you did a little 80s jig
I suddenly found
Hall & Oates.
I suddenly found myself in a John Hughes movie, and I did all the dance moves from sort of Breakfast Club and stuff.
Yeah.
So you want to mention why I made that choice?
Yeah.
Because another war movie of Spielberg's, it is in my top 5. Schindler's List is number 3.
Yeah.
And I feel like
it's my number 3 as well.
That sort of, I don't want to say like that covers Spielberg and war, but the issue that we mention in the episode, and what I still feel about it, if that was a 20-minute short of the first Omaha beach landing, alone, it would be in the top 10.
Yeah.
It's the other hour and 50 minutes or so that I struggle with.
Sure.
Which, in my opinion, at the moment, is being overridden by the comforting
sheer joy of nostalgia, 80s nostalgia.
Sentimental 80s nostalgia hug that I got from Ready Player One.
Okay.
Because I've only seen it once and it's a novel experience. And that will fade.
And that's the thing, top 10 lists are very much interchangeable with time, don't they?
Yeah.
For me, Saving Private Ryan, which did make my top 10, the hour and a half in the middle is not a drag. The only bits that I don't particularly like are the super patriotic old man bits at the beginning and the end. You know, that doesn't really work for me. Yeah. But I really like everything else. But interesting that Ready Player One... So, Ready Player One also made the top 10 of... Who's did it? Of Eliza's and Alana's as well, who watched it with us as well. So, Alana put it at number 4.
Yeah. It's interesting that Eliza did, because she's younger than us.
Yeah.
So I just wondered whether...
She was born in 92.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just think, well, if you're growing up then, did you actually relate to the culture?
I think I forced a lot of culture on Eliza and Clara growing up.
I see.
But yeah, she put it as number 8. For me, the ones that didn't quite make it, Jewel. I genuinely considered, whether Jewel should make it into the top 10. Definitely in the top half of Spielberg movies. I think Jewel is it's incredibly tense, and I really like it. For a first-time filmmaker, something that's shot in 11 days, it is a remarkable achievement.
It is. Number 9 on Liam's list.
Liam, okay.
Yeah.
Liam's he's the film guy, isn't he?
He's the big guy, because he's having a little explanation of each choice. Yeah. And he said, yes, it counts. It went to theatrical release after the television debut.
No, it absolutely counts. And I'm glad Jewel got a little bit of love.
He also says he wants to see Spielberg tackle something like this sort of budget range again, which was about $450,000 then, which adjusted for inflation is about $3 million today.
Okay.
So that would be interesting, because $3 million is nothing now.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, I know. I really like Jewel. I think it's a very, very impressive debut.
Yeah. Other ones for me, which also goes along a little bit with Saving Private Ryan. There are some great moments in Warhorse, and again,
Warhorse, I genuinely consider I know it's sentimental, but I generally consider it consider it for the top 10, yeah.
Now, it would almost, a bit like Saving Private Ryan, if it were a standalone 20-minute segment, and I'm talking about, if you listen to our episode, that segment where the horse is trapped with the barbed wire.
Yeah.
If it was that 20-minute segment, that would probably be in my top 10.
Yeah. But it's not.
But it's not, because that's not a standalone. That is not the case. So no.
Now again, Warhorse is considered by a lot to be a bit too sentimental, very, very, playing on the heartstrings. Yeah. But
if you really have that standalone segment, then that does cut a lot of that sentiment out, and it just becomes about the cold hard facts of men fighting.
It's true. It's only one of 3 Spielberg movies that has made me cry.
There you go.
So and the other 2 were in my top 10, which I'll reveal later.
Yeah. Any other from the B list that didn't?
From the B list, so 2 more. Minority Report.
Right.
Didn't make my top 10, but I think it's just an incredibly competent, quite complex sci-fi thriller. I think it's ruined a little bit by the ending, but concept of it, I think, is just incredibly well executed. And for its time, it looked absolutely amazing.
My number 10.
Is it your number 10? There you go. Also,
it sounds funny because you mentioned about sort of having the confidence in the first 8 of your choice.
Yeah.
The reason why I think maybe the reason why I say maybe I had confidence in the first 5 and then I'm like, and 6. Strangely, I kind of, let's say I had my 1 to 5 choices, and then I confidently put Minority Report as number 10.
Yeah.
I knew I wanted it in there, but it wasn't top 5.
Yeah.
So that's how I feel about it.
Okay, fair enough. So it made my dad's top 10 as well, but again in the number 10 position. So just to clarify, the people who we asked are the guests on our podcast, and if you haven't listened to the previous episodes, I do encourage you to do so. But the people that we got the list for are a number of people from my family. So both my sisters, Clara and Eliza, and my father, Alana, who was on our Ready Player One episode and our Temple of Doom episode, Liam from the Spotlight podcast, who was on our Kingdom of the Crystal Skull episode, and also George, who from the Invisible London podcast, who is
on our Jurassic Park episode.
So those are the people that we all asked to contribute. And the other one I genuinely considered, or at least I wrote down as on the possibility list, was The Adventures of Tintin, which I don't think it's made anyone else's or tickled anyone else's top 10.
Yeah.
And it isn't in my top 10, but I really enjoyed it that second time round. I think it's so much fun. I think the transitions that he uses in Tintin are comic booky and remarkably well done.
Yeah.
I think the animation really holds up. Tintin does look a bit wooden at times, but that's fine. I just think a really good, breezy, sub 2 hour, like an hour and a half movie.
Yeah.
That I'm really looking forward to the Peter Jackson sequel for.
Yeah, Liam's number 7.
Adventures of Tintin?
Yeah.
Yes, Liam! Thank you.
He describes it as the real 4th Indiana Jones.
Absolutely. Yeah. So those are the ones that were tickling my top 10. I keep on saying tickling top 10.
Tickling top 10?
I should really stop saying that.
Who's top
weird.
10? So should we reveal our top 10 to each other?
Okay, that's fine.
Before we then sort of go into our guests.
We've got to do like some sort of drum roll announcement type thing. Da 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 da. Find that music.
Okay.
So, my number 10 is Bridge of Spies. I think it is his most rewatchable, one of his most rewatchable post-2000 movies.
Yeah.
A lot of fun, complex plot told extremely simply. Hanks and Rylance are brilliant in it. Just a really good movie.
No, that didn't make the top 10, but okay. I can see why it's there for
Fine.
you.
Okay,
yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, and there are bits that I really enjoy about it.
Yeah.
My number 10, as already mentioned, is Minority Report.
Yeah.
For the same reasons as you, really. I think it's a really nice mixture of intellectualism and a fun roller coaster of a ride.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do have issues with the ending as well.
Yeah.
But it's also, it's really interesting. I really enjoy sitting down to watch it every time. It makes me think, what more can you ask?
From when we recorded that episode, the thing that you highlighted to me that I remember now most about Minority Report is the completely inappropriately creepy, very competent eye surgeon.
Yes.
Played by Peter Stormare.
Yes.
Like, who is set up to be such a sinister character.
Yeah, he's almost like out of a Hammer horror movie.
Exactly. And then performs a very complex surgical procedure extremely well.
Yeah.
With successful results and no residual infection or anything like that.
Yeah.
Well done, sir.
Yeah. Great medicine.
Exactly. So it turns out, a back alley, operation isn't always bad.
Yeah. There's one thing I'll take away from this whole thing.
Exactly. That's the thing I take away from it.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, in at 9 for you?
Near 9? Jaws.
Very far down the list, Luke.
Yes. So for me, Jaws, because obviously one of the points of contention that people have said make me completely unqualified to do a Spielberg podcast is the fact that I'd never watched Jaws before I had watched Jaws.
That's true.
I
was one of those people.
Exactly. Why am I doing this with this absolute charlatan?
Yeah.
And it's made my top 10. I do wonder whether it's made my top 10 because I feel it has to make my top 10, but I don't have as much emotional connection to it.
Yeah.
However, I did really enjoy it. I think it is a very tense movie. It made me jump, which probably the only Spielberg movie that has actually made me jump and a little bit extremely tense. It's probably the tensest Spielberg movie.
But there is that bit in Minority Report where he waves his hand in front of Samantha Morton's face.
Yes.
And then she jumps out from the tank.
That's
But it's
true.
exactly the same device. And exactly sounds almost like the exact same sound that's used when Ben Gardner's face pops out from the hole of the boat. But
And I think a lot of the love for Jaws comes from having grown up with it.
Yes.
And I think the fact that I didn't means there is a detachment for me. Same reason that Close Encounters, is revered, and I got a lot of stick for not actually liking Close Encounters that much at all.
Yeah.
But that's why Jaws is relatively far down on my list. However, it is still in my top 10. So don't at me.
Yeah.
What's your number 9? Oh, no, we already revealed it, haven't you? Ready Player One.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, which I'm really surprised made so many of our people's top 10 lists.
Because it did get mixed reviews, to be honest. And there's lovers of the book who really don't like the movie.
And for me, I think I said in the podcast, the more I watch it, the less that instantaneous sort of 80s hug hit that you said, I get less and less of that. And the more very basic characterization flaws really start to hit me.
Yeah.
So I think it's a bit too superficial for me to ever be in my top 10.
In a way, I'm surprised it's even on my list, if you see what I mean, having always complained about how much CGI is sort of taking over cinema and stuff. But for some reason, it really works.
And you know what? It's because you said there's unnecessary CGI, but this is set in a virtual reality world, which is computer generated. Like, it completely fits the environment, and it's beautifully rendered. Like, it looks great.
Yeah, cool. Number 8?
My number 8, we've already talked about it, is Saving Private Ryan.
Right.
Which what more can you say about it? It's a modern war classic. I have problems with the beginning and the end, but fine.
Yeah.
What about yours?
Munich.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this was
glad that made your top 10 because you were a bit down on it before you'd actually watched it again, weren't you?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. The reviewing has hoiked that bad boy right up.
My enthusiasm of it, because I think Munich is a modern masterpiece.
Yes.
I think it's great.
Yes. Definitely worth a rewatch.
And it's not actually made too many of our... It's made my dad's top 10 list, but none of my sisters and not Alana's. And I do wonder whether it's been watched at all.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'm glad. Absolutely, it completely deserves to be there.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it a bit more because it's higher on my list. My number 7 is Catch Me If You Can.
Cool. I'm glad it's in your top 10.
Absolutely. It's just so much fun, isn't it?
It is.
It's Leonardo DiCaprio having an absolute whale of a time. And it's just so elegantly and breezily directed.
Yeah.
And tells a really fun, interesting story. And introduces us to Amy Adams, who is, absolutely wonderful.
And it's a different tone to the other Spielberg movies.
Completely, yeah. So I think that's one of the most underrated Spielberg movies, and people don't know it's Spielberg.
Yeah, well, that's a great demonstration of his sort of chameleon nature.
Absolutely.
Varied, but I don't want to say disappears into the background, but I mean he hasn't been showy, so that's good, and he's just told a really great story really, really well.
Yeah.
That really holds up, which is really funny, really endearing in some ways, the way the character sort of grows up and that sort of thing. Yeah, we'll come to that in my list as well.
Yeah, okay, fine.
So my number 7 is Last Crusade.
Last Crusade, okay. So it's, I'm assuming Temple of Doom is not in your list, or Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. So that will be, you've ranked it lower than Raiders.
Maybe.
I'm assuming Raiders. I know Raiders is going to be in your top 5. Yeah. Okay, so Last Crusade, yeah. I mean, I think that's going to be in most people's top 10. I think that's a given.
Yeah.
It's just so much fun.
Yeah.
And the Connery dynamic really adds something. It's much more comedic, and it's one of, including Catch Me If You Can, I think one of his Spielberg's funniest movies.
Yeah.
And he's sometimes been criticised for having a bit of a deaf ear to comedy, but in these two, just all the comedy. When Spielberg is successful at comedy, it's from moments based on characters and based on relationships.
Yeah.
And it's realistic human moments that you put in there that he plays so well, and that's what makes it so funny.
And those two, Connery and Harrison Ford, they just bounce off each other in such a light way. It's really, really good.
I couldn't agree more, Joey.
Yeah. Last Crusade was Liam's number 6.
Yep. Let me just guess where it was on my dad's list?
Number 1.
Of course it was.
Was it?
Yeah. Genuinely.
Awesome. Yes.
Genuinely.
It also made George's number 5.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think it's on most of our lists, to be honest. Yeah.
It's great movie.
Yeah.
Considering it's the third in a trilogy, I mean, how many trilogies did you usually say the third one is?
Yeah.
One of the best.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. My number 6 was Munich. I wanted it to be top 5, but when I looked at it, I just could. It didn't quite make it into the top 5 for me. Right. But we've already talked about it. It's I think Munich is his most adult filmmaking. Not like that. At its most accomplished.
Yes.
Telling a really complex, really long story. It's its longest film since Schindler's List.
Yeah.
It's over 3 hours.
Yeah.
But
difficult subject matter, told really well, really tense.
With interesting action sequences.
Is it controversial to say it's entertaining as well?
Absolutely.
It just is entertaining.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day, regardless of, it could be in any kind of war. It could be in the Cold War.
Yeah.
But, politics aside, it's a great piece of entertainment.
Absolutely.
Right, my number 6 is E.T.
Only number 6?
Yeah.
You heartless monster. Oh, okay. So, why so low?
And by the way, it didn't make
George... Don't say because I prefer 5
And by the way, it didn't make George's top 10 at all.
What? Well, his opinion is dead to me now. Okay. Why is it as far down as number 6? And don't say because I preferred 5 films to it.
It's to do with, like, when you're asking me in this journey of the Spielberg back catalogue.
Yeah.
And that affects my number 9 position of Ready Player One, because I'm still on the excitement of having seen that for the first time. It's because, dare I say, I'm sort of over familiar with E.T.
Sure.
And its iconography.
Yeah.
And basically I feel like even from looking at the poster, I feel like I've seen the movie again because the poster does a really good job of summarising the plot.
Sure.
So every time I see that poster, which is a lot, because we follow a lot of people that put that poster on Instagram and things, I feel like
it should sort of have like a little spoiler on it. It should be the moon and the bike, and it just says he goes home.
Yeah, exactly.
Or like they find Nemo.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I just feel like I've been on the journey a lot, and like anything that's like a joke that you've heard too many times, like a movie that pulls on your heartstrings too many times.
Sure.
That's why it's made its way slowly down the list.
You know what? Fair. That's absolutely fair enough.
Yeah. I'm
sorry for criticising you.
Good.
Number 5 for me, movie we haven't mentioned yet, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Number 5.
Number 5.
Right.
Number 5. And I will say my number 4 as well. My number 4 is Last Crusade. And those two were interchangeable.
Yeah.
I really couldn't pull them apart. But just the comedy elements of Connery just elevated Last Crusade. And I know probably Raiders of the Lost Ark is the better movie. But for me, I just love Last Crusade so much. I love the ending, the final tasks with the Grail. And for Raiders, the fact that Indiana Jones didn't have to be there at all, and it didn't change anything with the plot. Everything would have happened exactly the same as it would have done.
Yeah.
Without Indiana Jones's intervention, the Nazis just would have killed themselves.
I mean, I just do feel like Raiders needs just a bit more kudos because it sets the whole thing up, which is much more difficult than making the third one in the trilogy because you already know the rules. But
you're absolutely right.
Totally am there with you as they are actually kind of interchangeable. Last Crusade has got the better character development, of character dynamics.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's got probably the best female lead in an Indiana Jones movie.
With Alison Doody playing Elsa,
Great character, who's actually an interesting character in her own right.
Who goes through an arc herself,
Probably the best MacGuffin as well.
Yeah.
It's got so much going for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Right, so I'm up to my number 5.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
My number 5 we've already talked about is Catch Me If You Can.
Yep, very good.
Because I had to confidently feel like that has to be high in the list.
Yeah.
Great light of touch and just great entertainment.
So that's probably going to be your only post 2000 Spielberg movie in your top 10.
Maybe.
No, in the top 5. No, it will be.
It is.
So the highest top post 2000 Spielberg movie for me was number 6 at Munich. Yeah.
Right.
Everything else was pre.
Yeah.
Okay. So we talked about Catch Me If You Can. What about number 4? What was your number 4?
My number 4 was Jaws.
Jaws. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Do you feel that's because you grew up with it and that's...
Partly because I grew up with it, but when I watched Jaws, and hopefully this is coming from an unpretentious point of view, that it could even be criticised for some of its artistry. What I'm talking about is like some of the special effects or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you want to watch someone who confidently knows directing as a trade or a craftsman, as solid as you can get almost.
Okay.
As a piece of...
Yeah, no, I agree.
As a piece of suspenseful cinema.
Mm-hmm.
Like, boy, has that guy learnt from Hitchcock, and he's learnt the technique well. Yeah. Drink up.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't diminish the influence that Jaws has on modern cinema.
Yeah.
Or modern culture.
Yeah.
It formed the blockbuster. Everyone knows the da-da. Everyone knows that.
Yeah.
It's the name of our podcast, and it was the name of our podcast before I'd even seen Jaws.
Yeah.
You know,
the popular culture iconography is just incredible. It's just made its way into the subconscious.
Absolutely, yeah.
Of absolutely everyone.
Now, we've already mentioned that our number 3s are the same. Schindler's List.
Yeah.
Yeah. This was always going to be in the top 5, even top 3. Even vying for number 1, to be honest. Because, you know, it's just such... What can you say? It's not one we revisit. I would revisit that often. But it's so important.
Yeah.
It's so iconic. It's got, and I'm probably going to say, the best performance in a Spielberg movie by Ralph Fiennes.
Yeah.
Don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. I just think it's a remarkable bit of filmmaking, and Spielberg's proper transition into a filmmaker that gets taken much more seriously by the Academy and his peers.
Yeah. I hope that it's coming across that the reason why Saving Private Ryan isn't in my list is because I have just the utmost respect for Schindler's List. I feel like it does the job of both of them. Yeah.
So, yeah. It can only be one war movie in your top 10.
Yeah, it's not that. It's just that, I have issues with some of the themes of Saving Private Ryan. You know, the amazing artistry of the filmmaking aside, Yeah.
Now, when I was talking to Clara about the list that we will talk about in a second, we talked a bit about Saving Private Ryan, and she was like, well, you know, I had to stop the movie and cry during Saving Private Ryan. She's like, the only other film that ever did that to me was Homeward Bound. So this is the kind of person who are contributing to our lists. Didn't mention anything about Schindler's List, but no, Homeward Bound and
Little Animals.
Number 2, shall I do my number 2?
Yeah.
E.T.
Right.
Yeah.
Why is that so high with you?
When I watched, so it was one of those ones that I hadn't watched since I was a child, and watching it again, in addition to Schindler's List, was one of the 3 movies that made me cry. I felt such nostalgia for it. I felt such affinity for that relationship between Elliot and E.T. And the fact that E.T., you know, obviously looks dated now.
Yeah.
And yet still having that emotional connection through the filmmaking. It's just great. I think it's absolutely timeless, and I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, it is great.
Yeah. I appreciate what you know, like, you know the tropes, you know that, you know, and that's why it goes down your list slightly. But for me, I hadn't seen it as often, and for me, I just absolutely loved it.
Yeah, and there's some great performances in there. I mean, we talked about how good Drew Barrymore is in that. Yeah, absolutely. That's memorable in itself, I think.
The best child performances in a Spielberg movie.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. And your number 2, Joey?
My number 2 is Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I think we've talked about it, haven't we?
We have.
Absolutely deserve. Like, these are all interchangeable for me. I think at any one day, like, a few of those could creep into the different positions.
Yeah.
Shall we say our number 1's in, and I'm assuming it's going to be the same, otherwise it's going to be awkward, in an Alan Partridge voice?
Yes.
Jurassic Park! Thought so. I love it.
The Lost World.
Exactly. Yeah. I love you saying the BFG. It's always going to be Jurassic Park, isn't it?
It is.
Oh, it's just
our blockbuster, isn't it?
It is our blockbuster. Yeah,
It is our Star Wars, because we're too young for the original Star Wars.
Yes. Yeah.
the big blockbuster, which came out when we were young and cinema going.
Yeah.
That everyone talked about in the playground at school.
Yeah. And watching it on a big screen recently, which we did when we watched it at the Royal Albert Hall for this podcast, the effects still hold up.
Yeah.
The CGI and the actual visual effects that they use for Jurassic Park have not dated
at all, I would say.
Compared to
Jurassic World.
Yeah. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
They look amazing because it's used like in Jaws. The shark is used sparingly. The dinosaurs are used sparingly. You know, you're seeing things in tiny glimpses of an eye. You're seeing things in small bits of reptilian skin. You're seeing the blink of a T-Rex's eye.
Yeah.
And that conveys so much more tension than just seeing the dinosaur outright to start off with.
But do you remember watching the whole movie? Even when they were sat around talking or whatever.
Yeah.
At any moment, it felt like one could just burst out and eat them.
Absolutely.
I was tense the entire time the first time I saw it.
Absolutely. And you know, I talked about this in all of our dinosaur episodes. I absolutely was terrified of this, and I had nightmares about this for years of being eaten on the toilet.
I think maybe because I may have already seen Jaws by that point and knew that you couldn't trust Spielberg, that he things jumped out at you when you were least expecting it. You know, the reveal of the shark in Jaws. Come down here and chug some of this shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and the fact that it isn't accompanied by the music.
Yes.
It's suddenly, whoa!
Yeah.
Had got me mentally prepared for. Like, I literally thought at any moment, even mid-sentence, someone could get eaten.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, the Velociraptor scene is, one of the greatest action set pieces in cinema history.
Yeah.
It's just great. Cool.
So I will also say it was George's number one as well.
I think it was. And Clara's and Alana's.
There you go.
Yeah, so I think...
It's just our generation.
It's our generation, exactly. Yeah. So I think that concludes our top 10. What we'll do now is I'm going to pick out a few little anomalies, let's say.
Yeah.
In some of our friends and families in lists. Have you got a couple as well?
Yeah.
Why don't you start with one? Surprise me. I haven't seen I haven't seen Liam or George's lists.
Right. Well, let's start with the big one, I think. The biggest shock.
What has George done this time?
I'm gonna give you one guess. What do you think George has done?
I think George has gone and... Well, actually, he may have made he may have done a similar thing to Alana, but I don't want to reveal it. So...
Go on, give me just
one
throw it out there.
Has he put... Oh, no, I know what he would have done.
Yeah.
Has he put The Lost World, really high?
The Lost World is his number 9.
Number 9, okay. Yeah. So, no, I haven't got it then. What has he put?
He's put Kingdom of the Crystal Skull as his number 3.
What? What?
Right. He's prepared a statement.
Has he? Okay.
Would you like me to read it to you?
Yeah. Do it in a sort of a stupid person's voice. Just to...
I'll do it in George's voice if you like. I just love this film. I love Mutt. I love the sets and the lost city at the end. I love the aliens. I love the mythology. I love the detective work. I love the communists. I love the bike ride. I love it all. I love the swinging monkeys. Shire is cracking in this film as Indy Jr. and it is so cruelly judged. Give it 20 years and this film will be the film the kids remember from the franchise.
No!
Mark my words.
No! Well, there you go. The opinion of famous flat earther and anti-vaxxer George Sanderman. I completely disagree.
Interesting, George.
Very interesting. What's your take on that? Should we just have a moment of silence while we...
Yeah, see some tumbleweed.
While we see George Sanderman's subscribers dwindle. Okay, interesting. Okay, so my interesting one was from Alana's list.
Right.
What do you think Alana's put as number 2? It's only bloody Hook.
Hook
is her number 2.
Wow, I was going to say Jurassic World, the Lost World, but okay.
No, it's actually her number 2. And I asked her about this because obviously this is extremely strange behaviour from Alana, who has contributed twice to our podcast.
Has she seen it recently? Or is she just going on the nostalgia?
So I don't know. So she says, the sheer joy that Robin Williams brings, so I'm quoting here, the sheer joy that Robin Williams brings to that role is magnetic. Every time I watch it, especially the imaginary food scene, I feel like a kid again. It's the right amount of dark with the kidnapping and attempted murder, and that's counterbalanced by Peter's love for his kids. If Hook's on TV, I'll put it on. It ranks with Mrs. Doubtfire on my personal favourite list. Also, I love camp, and Dustin Hoffman is camp as Christmas in this. You know what, like, a lot of people I talk to, look, we said before we watched it, you know, people go, oh, I'm looking forward to your Hook episode, you know, I love Hook, you know, Hook is one of my favourite kids' movies. And, you know...
I do like it.
And I like it as well. It's too long.
I do have nostalgia for it, but yeah, it's too long, it takes them too long to become Peter Pan.
Yeah, and it is a children's film that is trying to tell an adult story.
Yeah. And there's conflict there.
And yeah, absolutely.
What I suggest is re-watch it now.
Yeah. And
think about your actions.
Exactly. And also we mentioned that, you know, if you could read it, this is just a sort of alcoholic fever dream of Robin Williams, his character.
Yes.
Yeah. And he's just gone mad.
Yeah.
Look at it with that light. Okay, so no one else has put Hook on, apart from Eliza. Eliza put Hook as number 10, actually. So okay. Hook made her list. So yeah. I can see it as people getting into the bottom half. Yeah. That's acceptable.
That would be her husband's number 1, though, wouldn't it?
It would be. James absolutely loves Hook. And the other one that was particularly controversial was on Clara's list.
Right.
So she ranked... so her number 2 was Last Crusade. Her number 3 was Raiders of the Lost Ark. Her number 4 was Temple of Doom.
Really?
Yeah. So which hasn't made an appearance on any of our lists at all.
Oh, well, that's quite good.
Yeah. And she was just she was quite worried about doing the top 10 list because she's like, oh, well, I haven't seen many of the films and I don't want to be laughed at.
Yeah.
But you're about to be laughed at, Clara.
It's all right. We've just had George.
Yeah, exactly. It's true. You've been out stupided by some other people. So no, so like she just says, you know, she has such affinity for growing up with the Indiana Jones movies in our household, and you know, Temple of Doom is a part of that trilogy.
I do remember saying in our closing statements of Temple of Doom.
Yeah.
When someone says the word Indiana Jones, one of the very first images that pops to mind is the guy with the heart still beating in his hand and stuff.
It's true.
It's like, well, if that wasn't there, would I love the whole trilogy?
It's true. One of the famous posters is, you know, him holding the glowing stones, isn't it? In that red, you know, that red background.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's iconic, I agree. But I think more problematic, which we talked about with Alana on our episode.
And there is some great stuff in it. We all agreed that some of the best set pieces from all of the Indiana Jones movies is that room with the spikes coming down.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that.
That is really, really good.
Yeah. Yeah. The bugs are the worst for me of the creepiest of the creepy crawliest of all of the indignities that Spielberg had to put his female actors through.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's nothing else particularly controversial. We haven't mentioned The Terminal. The Terminal made number 8 on my dad's list.
Right. Empire of the Sun made number 8 on Liam's list.
Okay, that hadn't got much love from any of us.
Yeah.
And The Colour Purple made number 10 on Alana's list as well.
Again, I can kind of see that sort of being worthy of a number 10 spot.
I don't think The Colour Purple particularly... I think The Colour Purple and Empire of the Sun for me are Spielberg's practicing at being a more adult filmmaker. And it hasn't got it right quite yet.
Yeah.
There are still flaws in the structure of the story for me that don't quite hit the heights of his other movies.
Yeah. I suppose I've got another anomaly, you might say.
Okay.
From George.
Yeah. Of course.
Number 2.
Number 2? What's he put?
Temple of Doom as well.
He's put Temple of Doom and then Kingdom of the Crystal Skull above Raiders of the Lost Ark and...
Yeah, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is number 3. Temple of Doom is number 2.
Above Last Crusade and Raiders?
Yeah.
If Temple of Doom makes our ultimate top 10 list...
Last Crusade was number 5 on George's and Raiders was 7.
Absolute madness. What do you say about that?
So, would you like his statement?
Yes.
I borrowed my pal Sam Smith's home-recorded VHS copy of Temple of Doom for about 3 years when I was little. So this was the indie adventure I watched again and again and again. Which, you know, I can kind of see.
Fair enough.
See. It's my absolute favourite. It is super dark and freaky, with people drinking blood and kids getting whipped.
I love it.
And voodoo dolls and creepy bugs. Thrills and chills me to this day. I think probably every Saturday morning I would watch this film after Live and Kicking and then just run around in the garden wishing an adventure to happen. I now work in antiques. Dreams do come true.
Oh, excellent.
We can whip you too if you want.
Yeah.
That is...
There we go.
A great note to end it on.
Absolutely. So what I'm going to do now is we'll take a little break. What I'd like you to do, Joey, is get that top 10 music from Radio 2 and do it as a bed, as we'll count down the official top 10 when we've pooled all of our scores together.
Sure.
And we'll give you the official... Well, now, the top 10, which we don't necessarily agree with, but that is the scores from everyone that have contributed. Alright, we are back. So hopefully, if Joey's managed to get permissions or the editing, we've got Pick of the Pops in the background. And we're going to do our countdown from our lowest. And it is an interesting list that we've got. So there are 11 Spielberg movies which have not made the list at all. We won't go into those, but we start at number 21, where we have The Colour Purple with 1 point. Tied at 18 with 2 points, Minority Report, Duel, and The Lost World. Number 17, we have Empire of the Sun with 3 points. Number 16, Tintin at 4 points. At 15, we have The Terminal with 5 points. At number 14, thank you, George, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull with 8 points.
Wow.
Which is apparently a better movie than The Terminal or Minority Report or Duel.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Who knew? Yeah, you heard it here first. At 13, we have Hook with 10 points. And 12, not quite making it into our top 10, is Bridge of Spies with 11. And number 11, just missing out, Munich with 13 points. And now we are entering the top 10.
Dun, dun, dun.
At number 10, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Right.
With 16 points, just squeezing into our top 10 because of 2 people. At 9, interesting, Ready Player One with 17 points. At 8, Saving Private Ryan with 26 points. At 7, it's Catch Me If You Can with 31. At 6, Schindler's List doesn't make the top 5 with 38 points. But just sneaking into the top 5 with 40 is Jaws. Number 3, joint third place actually. Couldn't separate them. E.T. and Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, both on 43 points. And the top 2 are quite set apart from the rest. At number 2, it's Raiders of the Lost Ark at 55 points. And number 1, unanimously, at 70 points, the greatest Spielberg movie, Jurassic Park.
What? Hey.
How do you feel about that list?
I feel like it's fair, but there's definitely some odd ones in there.
I mean, Temple of Doom.
Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Anyway.
Well, to be fair, the top 8 were the same as my top 8. So, not in the same order, but they were all there in a various order. So I'm quite happy with the top 8.
Yeah.
It starts getting a bit more dubious as things go on,
yeah,
but that's fine.
As you go down, yeah. Minority Report doesn't deserve to be that low.
No, yeah. Number 18, yeah. From something we call the George Factor. Cool. Well, that was interesting.
It was.
Yeah,
Thanks for doing that, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. We're going to come... So we will be back with a few more bonus episodes, I think, over the coming few months. But we will take a break from podcasting, but we will still be on our... all of our episodes are still available to download. So introduce your friends to this podcast.
Yes.
Try and get our profile up. We'll still be on social media.
Let us know about your lists and stuff.
Yep, we will still be posting about Spielberg. Yeah, if you could let us know your top 10 lists, we'll post that on Twitter for a question. So let us know yours and see how it compares to our individual ones and the cumulative list. But otherwise, we will see you soon. You can always follow us on Twitter at Big Boat Podcast. Follow us on Instagram at The Bigger Boat Podcast. And you can email us as well with your top 10s at
thebiggerboatpodcast@gmail.com.
And we will keep you posted.
Thank you so much for joining us on this journey.
It's been an absolute treat.
It has been great. I feel like I've learnt stuff that I didn't know before.
Yeah.
I hope you have too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've got a lot better at this podcasting thing as the episodes have gone on.
It would be disappointing if we got worse. Because we were quite poor to start.
We were quite poor to start. But yeah, keep in touch.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll see you very soon.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.